Welcome to episode 13 of our series on the surnames of Appalachia and the American South. You know, there are at least 1 million surnames in these regions. So to make our task more manageable, we're focusing on pre-Civil War surnames. Before we jump in, I wanted to ask your thoughts about the possible creation of a Vantage Point Roundtable. It would meet once or twice a month in live sessions. We could discuss DNA and paper trail genealogy as well as other historical topics discussed on the Vantage Point. There'd be a small monthly membership fee of about $11.99, but please let me know if you'd be interested in joining the roundtable by offering me any thoughts or recommendations in the comments section. As always, the family names we'll examine today are suggested by folks in our YouTube community. Please note that I discuss surnames in the order that I receive them. In case you missed the previous video on surnames, I'll post a link to it in the description. So, today on the Vantage Point, we'll see surnames that originated in Flanders, France, England, Scotland, and Ireland, and they're spread across Appalachia and the American South. I hope you'll join me. Let's get started. Number 1, Markham. When I was a teenager in Oliver Springs, Tennessee, a very good friend of mine, who was also a teenager, was absolutely in love with a Markham girl. So I was thrilled to receive this request. But my pal passed away when he was 38. He never did get over that girl. But at any rate, Markham is a toponym from Berkshire, England. Berkshire is a county in southeastern portion of the country. The surname Markham was given to someone from Marchlands in Berkshire. One online source gives Nottinghamshire as the original source region, but I'm not convinced of that source's veracity. You might be wondering about what constitutes marchland. Well, it's a parcel of ground on or along a border. The surname doesn't appear to be in any other regional sources, so I think we can be confident that Markham hails from Berkshire, England. Number 2, Carver. One of my heroes from agricultural history was George Washington Carver. He was famous for conducting original research on crop rotation and soil fertility. At any rate, his surname had something of a rustic origin that involved harvesting trees. It's an Old English name given to someone who worked as a wood sculptor or wood carver. That occupation was much more than just whittling on a stick of wood. A carver was a highly practical and artistic occupation in medieval Europe, including England, Scotland, and Ireland. In addition to England, carver showed up in Scotland by 1476 when a Scottish merchant of that name received payment for wood carvings. You might find this interesting. The occupation of carver, K-E-R-V-R-E-R, is mentioned in Chaucer's The Knight's Tale. Chaucer called the artisan a carver of images. Carver is found in Scotland, but it's not particularly common in Ireland or Wales. Number 3, Franklin. Henry Harrison claims that Franklin, despite invoking images of Benjamin Franklin and the good old American Revolution, is of Anglo-French Teutonic origin. It was originally given to a free man, but by the year 1150, it was applied to a freeholder. In English common law, a freeholder was one who held title to land. Think of it today as one who has a deed to a piece of real estate or property. McGlassick says that Franklin has been common in Ireland's counties Limerick and Tipperary since the late 17th century. It's not particularly common in Scotland or Wales, so I think we can be confident that Franklin arrived in the South with people from England or Ireland. You might also be interested to know that in 1784, and in honor of Ben Franklin, Upper East Tennessee was almost given the name the State of Franklin. Number 4, Burl or Burrell. Burl is a common French surname. It means one who has a reddish-brown complexion. It's found in England and Ireland, but in Ireland it's an alternate form of Beryl. George Fraser Black argues that Burl was first found in England's Yorkshire, but by 1180 it was in Kelso, Scotland, and is today considered a Lowland Scots or border British surname with roots in France. Number 5, Stokes. The son of Stoke is an Old English name for a dwelling place. By the 14th century it was well established in Ireland, and by the 19th century several distinguished writers and other prominent Irish people were named Stokes. It doesn't appear to be common in Scotland or Wales. Because of its prominence in Ireland, McGlassick does not call Stokes an English name. despite its ancient origin among the English. I think we're safe in calling Stokes an Anglo-Irish surname. Number 7, Cox. As I've mentioned in several videos, simple names could have several places of origin and as many meanings. That's certainly true when it comes to Cox. In my home area of East Tennessee, there are dozens of families with a Cox surname. In England, it was originally a nickname for someone who resembled a male bird. It could also be a Flemish surname, de Cock. In Wales, it could have been given to someone with a rosy complexion or red hair. That's quite common there. In Ireland, it's an alternate form of McQuilly. Spelled Cock, the surname has been in the eastern lowlands of Scotland since at least the middle of the 16th century. By now you're probably thinking that one would need a DNA test and paper trail to locate the origin of specific lines of Cox, and that would be true. Number 8, Hamilton. Noted genealogists Sir Robert Douglas and Henry Harrison contend that Hamilton entered Great Britain as a Norman name. The place name Hambleton appeared in various places in England and Scotland, without much evidence of direct familial connections among them. The lords of the manor of Hamilton lived in County Leicester, but the surname shortly appeared or spread to other places. By 1290, families of Hamilton were becoming members of the landed gentry class in Scotland's County Lanark. The Scottish lowlands were among the more productive agricultural lands in the Bonnie country, so Norman nobles were especially attracted to that part of Scotland. The Scottish variety of Hamilton was so prominent in the Isles that Edward MacLysick in the Surnames of Ireland calls Hamilton a Scottish surname. In my book, In Search of Ulster Scotsland, I certainly found a lot of connections between Irish Hamiltons and their relatives in Scotland. Hamilton is not common in Wales, so I think Americans can be confident and consider Hamilton an Anglo-Scots or Scots-Irish surname. Number 8, Tipton. The surname Tipton is a toponymic derived from perhaps two different places in England. One is in Staffordshire, which is in the West Midlands, and the other is in southwestern England's Devonshire. Tipton must have arrived in America from England because it doesn't seem to be common in Ireland, Wales, or Scotland. I think we're more than safe in calling Tipton an English surname. Number 9, Skeen. Skeen is a Scottish name. There's a Loch Skeen in Aberdeen in the northeast. There's another Loch Skeen in Dumfriesshire in the southwest of Scotland, that is. Loch, of course, means lake. Across the North Channel of the Irish Sea in Ireland, there's a Lough Skeen. George Fraser Black believes Skeen was derived from the Scottish Gaelic word for squint-eyed or wild-eyed. Unlike most of the surnames that we have looked at so far today, Skeen doesn't appear to be well represented anywhere in the Isles outside of Scotland. Of course, there are probably some residents named Skeen in England, but they're not particularly common. Although Black mentions Loch Skeen in the lowlands, I think that the Aberdeen area is the best source for the surname Skeen in Appalachia and the America South, and let me explain why. If there were sizable numbers of Skeen family members in Dumfries, several Skeen relatives would have relocated to Ulster in the 17th century during the plantation, but that doesn't seem to be the case, despite the presence of Lough Skeen in Ireland. Well, friends, that's all I have for you today. I hope you got something meaningful out of our discussion. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. I invite you to check out all the videos on the Vantage Point. I'll be back by Tuesday with another episode on Surnames of Appalachia and the American South. I hope to see you then. God bless you and yours. Bye-bye.